In a world drowning in noise, where truth is often buried beneath layers of propaganda and misinformation, there's a need for a different kind of a network of creators that cuts through the clutter, that doesn't shy away from tough topics, and that delivers the unfiltered truth. We are Trim Radio Network. We are creators, we are innovators, we are investigators. We're the ones who aren't afraid to call a spade a spade. If you're ready to participate in thought-provoking discussions, informational topics, and of course today's biggest headlines, subscribe to our YouTube channel today. We're Trim Radio Network. We're cutting the bull and serving the truth.
Welcome to Revelation, where prophecy meets science. Join host Peter Kling, the Einstein of Biblical Prophecy, as he uncovers ancient truths with modern insight. Prepare to see the world in a whole new light. And now your host, Peter Kling.
Well, good evening to all, and thank you for joining me tonight. It is a brand new year. May all your resolutions be satisfied, and may this year be better than last year. But will it be? It seems on a global scale, there is so much uncertainty unraveling. And a lot of people have that on their own personal scale, their own personal life, mostly because a lot of people, as it's written, become faint out of fear of situations that are going on. And while we may not be fearful, I see some of the things that we have going on and around the world, not just here in the United States, but all over the planet. And there is virtually turmoil wherever you look. And so then one has to ask, what in the world is going on? And something that caught my attention, we've talked about this off and on for the last 6 months, basically, is Comet Ison. Sorry, wrong comet. Let's switch over. Comet 3I Atlas. I love Comet Ison too, the greatest comet civilization never got to see. And interestingly enough, I wonder if these events are linked. And, I guess a little bit of a Freudian slip with Ison, but Comet Ison was thought to be possibly the sign of the Mayan snake god come back. And had it not been destroyed coming around the sun on the 16th of December 2013, it would have aligned perfectly with Venus in the evening sky. And Venus was beautiful at that time. I remember seeing Venus. I'm like, yeah, where's Comet Ison? Gone. But every night, just after the sun would set, there'd be Venus right in the western sky. And Ison would have appeared right over the planet Venus, looking like a giant exclamation point, or like the feathered snake god come back to be for the new Baktun. And so it was a sign in the sky that we never got to see. But what was powerful enough to destroy Comet Ison? And when I say, destroyed Comet Ison, because it wasn't the sun that destroyed Comet Ison, even though it was considered to be a sun grazer. There were something blew Comet Ison apart. And the tell here was that the coma from the comet was blowing perpendicular to the sun when it came around the backside of the sun. So what had a force in order to do that? And so here we are looking at Comet 3I Atlas, and there was so much nonsense that was being talked about with Comet 3I Atlas that I kind of took a real wait and see attitude, because there was just too much weirdness going on here. and what was information, what was disinformation, what's real, what's not real. It, and Professor Avi Loeb at Harvard there was saying, "Oh, well, this could be an alien spacecraft," and it really was anonymous. Yeah, it had a lot of anomalies to it. I think they counted 14 in total. And the more you study this interesting object, the more you have to come to the conclusion that it very well could be something that was, shall we say, created by intelligent design. In my own observations, there's the tail, there's the anti-tail. They just had some interesting photographs released from Hubble, which shows a major signature in the front of 3I Atlas, and two major signatures coming off the back of 3I Atlas at about 180 degrees. And so you look at this and you're wondering, is this thing under power of some sort? And the measurements that they give on the tails and the anti-tail, and the calculations that have been done by Avi Loeb, this thing is giving off such a mass of uh, um, material that it seems like this thing should have run out of material unless it was processing it somehow, which just leads to more questions. And it's an anomalous situation, and me being the skeptic, looking at this with everything that seems to be shaking out, and trust me, there's been a lot of disinformation on this 3I Atlas, and it's not like anything that's ever been seen or measured or calculated before. But then again, think about how long we've been seriously studying space and had a good handle on it. 150 years, maybe. Now we're using such advanced telescopes; they're not even on the planet anymore. We got two of them that they're just looking for all sorts of. They had the Hubble telescope, and we got the name of this last one that they put up, which is even more spectacular than the Hubble. But, they should be able to zoom in on 3I Atlas and say, "Hey, look, it's got portholes and there's people waving at us," or something like that. They should be able to see the surface of this thing and get beyond just the energy fields around it. And so it's interesting that this has been escalated and the truth manipulated, and the questions raised. Could this be the return of the Anunnaki? Could this be Nibiru? Or is this a calling card for the Anunnaki? And if you don't know who the Anunnaki are, real quick, um, they're the gods of ancient Mesopotamia. Uh, they're part of their mythology, and those gods essentially became, or at least a version of those gods became the gods of other world powers as time progressed. They were just referred to by different names. Um, we know them, they're becoming quite popular again, unfortunately. But, there's been so much disinformation, I'm going to call it disinformation, about the Anunnaki and where they came from and who they are, and why we might or might not need to be concerned about this. And are they actually returning? Um, so the first thing is, actually, I guess we look at uh, who the Anunnaki say, according to the mythology And in a quick nutshell, they essentially say that uh, they were our creators. The legend was that they genetically engineered us from lower life forms. Um, they uh, engineered us to be their slaves, to mine gold, and they needed it for their atmosphere, and they gave us advanced technology and uh, essentially enslaved us into mining gold for their planet. All right, there's a god I want to worship. Not. Uh, but it's interesting when you start doing more and more um, research into the Anunnaki, uh, they become more and more mythical. And think about this. It's an extraterrestrial uh, group of individuals that came, genetically engineered us, so they gave us real advanced knowledge, and then they put us to work. And if you look at the world in which we live today, you can pretty much say, well, yeah, my boss is a slave driver. Think about it. That's I don't know how the workforce is right now. I've been out of it for a while. Uh, the, uh, the good Lord has preserved me alive to the point that I could actually benefit from my age, I guess, so to speak, in a lot of different ways. But yeah, I separated myself from the conventional workforce, or I was separated several years ago. But regardless, um, things still get done. Trust me, the company didn't end because I retired. It's still putting right away. Um, I've made some very interesting contributions to a lot of different fields, but you know, had bosses that were real good, had bosses that were slave drivers. Oh my God. And slave drivers that were unappreciative about anything that you did. Yeah, okay. So it goes both ways. And you also get, all sorts of people, all sorts of results. Some people are, just a lot less feeling, a lot more self centered, a lot more. I've been here longer than you, so you are subservient to me. Um, yeah, it takes all types. And if you've been in the workforce long enough, obviously you run into all types. So I don't have to tell you. Your boss is a slave driver too. Well, could be. Um, and so, what are the Anunnaki are our bosses, and are they returning? And you have to start questioning the narrative on how all of this comes together, because along with the Anunnaki returning, you have a growing population that believe that the Earth is flat. Okay. Now, Anu is, interestingly enough, the king of the Anunnaki, who's a god, uh, a dome over a flat Earth. He's a sky god, and he's the god of a domed, flat Earth. Oh, the Earth is flat. Yeah, didn't know we had so many Anunnaki worshippers that don't even know who the Anunnaki were. But the Earth is flat. Well, that's a discussion that we don't really need to have. Go take one semester in astrophysics, and you realize why it's impossible for the Earth to be flat. And if you believe the Earth is flat, hey, more power to you. That's not why we're here. It's like fleas that have infested a dog trying to argue over the breed of the dog. And then you find out that the dog is actually Heinz 57. There's all sorts of breeds in there. But He's lovable anyway. The poor puppy's got fleas, though. But yeah, fleas arguing over the dog. Huh? Okay. Maybe we ought to be thinking about more productive things and be able to accomplish those more productive things. But if you don't have the truth or the realization of the times in which we live, there's very little that you can do to control or to um, benefit by future events coming. You know, I tried surfing. Nobody ever tries surfing because just trying surfing isn't surfing. I I've got good balance, but yeah, not quite that good, regardless. But to use that as an analogy, when a surfer is surfing, catching that wave, every wave is different and it's going to present a little different uh, reaction, and you're going to be in a slightly different position on that next wave. Uh, but when you're on the wave, you can see where you're headed and which way the wave is breaking, and you can ride the wave in the direction in which it is going until you're done riding the wave and cut out. Um, I use the expression "ride the horse in the direction in which it's going." Just so happened to be I wanted to go in that same direction, so it worked out. And but you have to have the foresight and the insight. And if you have disinformation being handed to you all the time and not the reality, how can you have either foresight or insight? You look at how unstable things are right now on the planet, and you have to wonder with what is still going on between Ukraine and Russia, and the people who are pulling the strings there. Hey, it's the Second World War that they're now trying to escalate into the Third World War. The same powers are still behind what is going on in Ukraine. And when I say the same powers, it's the same European powers that created World War One and World War Two. It goes back to the banksters and who controls the money. Yeah, kings and queens don't really much care. But the, anytime there's a war, there's money to be made. And the bankers know it well. But that's not why we're here. What the war does do is create a lot of uncertainty. And you look at the situations going on within our own country, we've got our own kind of secret war going on against the drug cartels in the country and the corruption that's taken place. And if the United States is losing its identity for the first time. Well, white people are the minority. The problem is that the people who have come into this country haven't assimilated into this country. They want to rape, pillage, and burn this country for their own benefit. At least a good proportion of them do. Some people are just looking to get a better life. That's all they want. They were living in some cesspool hole before, and they just wanted to come to the land of opportunity. And they're willing to work. They're willing to become citizens of this country. Others are here for total exploitation of the country, and people are finding that out more and more by the corruption that's going on. And believe it or not, it's all linked together. But if you live in those areas that are heavily infiltrated, and I'll call them that, heavily infiltrated, then you have to be a lot more careful in everything that you do and your children, your family does. And if you have children, your children do. It's like keep your head on a swivel. Pay attention to what's around you. If you be prepared the way you might have to leave your house and go. Be prepared if you have to shelter in place. But if you're not aware of the dangers around you and the situations around you, how do you prepare? How do you prepare for the financial situation if you're living day to day? And so, how do you prepare for the greater things to come if you don't have the insight and comprehend what we're dealing with here with the Anunnaki, the gods of yesteryear? When we go back and we look at the actual evidence, and uh, hmm, I guess you have to go back to the what I would call the second alien invasion of planet Earth. And while there may be some truth that we're dealing with genetic engineers of planet Earth in some aspects, that was not their position. That's not what they were originally here to do. Well, they were here as workers, creating a planet that was going to be inhabited by the children of the Almighty, Yahuwah, son of Yeshua. I mean, whose son is Yeshua. Uh, the Father, God, Jehovah, Yahweh, as some call, the creator of all things, that power of all the dimensional world in which we live, was going to give, or intended to give, and did give this planet to his youngest creation, his youngest intelligent biological creation, which was man and woman. Right there in Genesis, the first chapter, you could read that. Goes into a little bit more detail in Genesis chapter 2, and we find out, yeah, genetic engineering was used. It's the only explanation for how life started here on Earth. The only logical explanation. Oh no, it took billions and billions of years. Fine. Where did all the genetic information come during the Cambrian period? Explain that. Oh, well, the oxygen levels just got up to about 24, 25%, and it just spontaneously happened. Oh, so something was created from nothing. Is that what you're telling me? Yet there was more genetic diversity during the Cambrian period than has ever existed on this planet since. And so when we go to Genesis chapter 3, we find out what happens. The first couple were corrupted by probably who was the head of genetic engineering. And so it sets up one thing after another, and comes down to, oh, well, now we got the Anunnaki to deal with. But I think that the Anunnaki is more folklore than it is reality. And it was publicized by Zachariah Stitchin, but we'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. What we find with the second invasion of planet Earth, where we have to go to Genesis, the sixth chapter, when mankind grew in number, and the daughters of the Earth people were good looking, it caught the attention of this group of off-planet entities known as the Watchers. And they were put into place to watch over the development of planet Earth, but not get involved. And something happened. Most likely, you have to look at who had control of planet Earth, and that would have been the serpent, or the dragon empire. The dragon itself controlling planet Earth. So what would Draco, reptilians? So we break it all down because we don't believe in gods anymore, but we should. At least to get a better understanding of what we're dealing with, because only one matters. The rest are shills. The rest have no power unless you give it to them. And so the more people have given these satanic gods, those who have submitted to Satan first to become the gods of the people on this planet, that's basically what happened there. So some deal was struck with these Watchers that thought Earth women were hot. And they had the opportunity to create their own offspring who then would inhabit Earth, not the offspring of Yahuwah, not the Creator's offspring, not the Adamites, but they wanted to create their own offspring, which indeed they did, and their own offspring basically destroyed the planet. We're talking about the Nephilim, these huge giants that ate everything that they could, including people. If you ever saw the movie, and a great movie, Greek mythology, Jason and the Argonauts, and they're dealing with the Cyclops. They get captured by this huge Cyclops, and the Cyclops eats them. What does he say? These Greeks are tough. Well, yeah, but that was the reality of it. That was the reality of it. Because we were dealing with extraterrestrial entities that had impregnated human women, and they gave birth to these hybrid offspring who grew as large as the environment would let them grow. There comes a point when uh, you can get so big that you can no longer survive within the environment. That's why we don't have pterodactyls anymore, and the big dinosaurs are gone, and we only have lizards. Post flood, the density of the Earth, I'm sure, had a whole lot more gravity and a whole lot less atmosphere, just because of the mass that had been accumulated from all that water dropping the water canopy, the firmament. Oh, it's up there. No, 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 no. That came down, and there's evidence of that. There's evidence all over the place. Go look at the Grand Canyon. They get down to the bottom and say, well, somehow we're missing 1 billion years down here. Well, maybe it didn't happen the way that you think it did, and you should reorganize your thoughts and go look at it from a more scientific, less academic viewpoint. Academia is just as bad as religion is. It screws up the truth. It screws up the reality. Think about that. Our two biggest institutions, religion and academia, don't want you to know the truth. Because once you know the truth, you become dangerous. And now you can tell other people the truth. And then once the truth is known, their narrative falls apart. See, right now they believe that they have power over us. And by learning the truth, you take away their power. Of the watches, we've talked about them before. But the interesting thing is, when judgment was served upon the watches and they were thrown into Tartarus, their sons, who wound up killing each other, warring with each other, if that was the end of them. Their bodies died, but their souls, their spirits, were confined to Earth because they were part of the human race, and God didn't want their souls back. They were destined to be here on the planet, and still are. They have not left. And we have great evidence of that once we start looking through that. And here's one point. These entities, these Nephilim, whose souls, whose conscious energy is still among us, hate us. They hate us. And the only one who they hate more than us is our Father. They hate Christians the most because the Christians will not submit to them. The Christians know how to control them, especially those who know the name of God. You see, that's why King James, who supported the Freemason movement, had the name of Yahweh or Jehovah removed from the Bible over 7,000 times. And he put our God, Lord God. Well, which Lord God are you talking about? Are you talking about Anu? Are you talking about Enki? Are you talking about Baal or Ashtoreth? Are you talking about Molech? Are you talking about Isis? Are you talking about Jupiter, Zeus, Apollo? Which god are you talking about? Perhaps Apollyon? Hmm. Maybe you're talking about Shiva, also a destroyer. You see, when you look at the different names of the gods, it also describes what they're doing. And the narrative has become so that these Anunnaki are supposed to be coming back. Well, if you want to consider the Anunnaki, uh, the Watchers originally, or maybe their sons, the Nephilim, those disembodied spirits that are still with us and who want mankind enslaved. You see, it's all about who can rule over us. And so, what they do for their own pleasure, and we can call them aliens, uh, they have an elite class that is willing to sacrifice and do whatever it takes to give them homage and worship, to make them feel important, to give them position on the planet, to give them the divine right to rule. And so, who is their God? Well, their God is the satanic kingdom. Or they are part of the satanic kingdom. They're, as Jesus said, you are from your father, the devil. Who did he tell that to? Those from the synagogue of Satan who claim to be Jews and are not, but are lying? Yeah. You are from your father, the devil. He was a manslayer when he started, and he's still a manslayer today. And so these entities just love death and destruction, especially if it involves Christians. And more wars have probably been started by the church and possibly by most religious entities as you go through history, because religion rides the back of government. Look at the Crusades. 300 years they waged war in the Middle East against Islam. People who kind of believed in the same God, just that they didn't stop at Jesus. They stopped at Allah, or Muhammad, actually. And it wasn't, God the Father. It was Allah. It still is. Nothing's changed for 300 years. Look at the French Holy Wars. Over 50 years of Catholics killing Protestants. Think about it. Over 50 years. Terrible, terrible. Christians killing Christians because of what the church said. Well, you believe this way. You don't. Well, wait a minute. They both believe in Jesus. What happened here? How did this get off track? The same thing in World War I, the same thing in World War II. And you've got the wild thing is with Ukraine, you basically have cousins killing cousins because a significant part of the Ukrainian population is Russian descent. Because there is that part that grew out of Khazaria. And so who's fomenting the war there? Now, the story where we get the Anunnaki today, comes from Zachariah Stitchin. And he was supposed to have translated the cuneiform tablets and writings and come to understand who these gods were and how they were around much longer than the Bible, and these are texts that are more reliable than what's written in scriptures because they're 1,000 years older, and so this has to be more realistic. And a whole movement was essentially founded on Zachariah Stitchin's work. The only problem was, and still is that Zachariah Stitchin got most of it all wrong. He's been debunked by people who can actually translate cuneiform writing. And the best thing that I've heard, and I've listened to several people who were experts in cuneiform writing, translating cuneiform texts, and they said Stitchin got it wrong. And these are people that are professors who work work in that area of research where they're looking to translate and comprehend the things that were written back 3,000, almost 4,000 years ago, just about 4,000 years ago. But Stitchin basically combined science fiction with alleged Sumerian texts, which he couldn't translate properly. And that is the big issue. Yet he became such a renowned person based on falsehoods, and he influenced a whole culture where the Anunnaki from the days of ancient Sumeria are expected to come back. Will they? Well, the fact is they may have never left, because if the Anunnaki are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, and according to the Book of Enoch, that would certainly fit the bill, and it would explain a lot of what we see going on in the metaphysical world today. And the fact that they still hate humans and want us to be their slaves and or worship them. It's interesting when the scriptures will talk a little bit about this, how different people learned metalsmithing and medicine and things of that nature. In the Book of Enoch goes into a lot more detail on which one of the Watchers taught what technology to the humans. You remember, they came down, they co-inhabited here. They took our daughters for their wives. As a matter of fact, they took all the daughters that they wanted for their wives. So Lord only knows how many Nephilim were fathered. But they also gave technologies, and metalworking was one of them. That was a big one. The Iron Age came a lot earlier than what we're told by academia. Well, just because they used mostly copper tools, and copper tools didn't chisel out stones that we used to build the pyramids either, and that's now coming out. So let's just touch on that. Allegedly, using ground-penetrating radar, there's a structure under the pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Khufu, the name of the anyway, the Great Pyramid of Giza. There's a structure that's 2 kilometers deep under that pyramid. And it's been disputed for years that the pyramid wasn't It wasn't at all an Egyptian tomb. And it's interesting, the pyramid inch that's given, uh, if I, based on the research that I've done on the pyramid and using the pyramid inch and the number of alleged capstones, and it sounds more Judeo-Christian than it does Egyptian. But it even predates Judeo-Christian, which now takes it where? Off planet. The technology didn't ever exist. Humans never had the capability to dig a hole 2 kilometers deep that works out to what, 1.67 miles? I don't know, but over a mile and a half deep. Over a mile and a half straight down, bump. And then built a huge base and had pillars wrapped in a helix coil. I believe there's eight tubes or 8 pillars wrapped in some sort of a possible metallic helix coil all the way up. And that's the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza. What the heck is that? Who built it? What was it originally used for? We may find those answers sooner or later. It could have been used as an oxygen generator to raise the oxygen levels up during the Cambrian period or before the Cambrian period. And then they had plenty of oxygen for life to exist on Earth. There's pyramids all over the place. What were they used for originally? We don't know. When you consider the scriptures in Genesis, in Exodus, when the 9th plague came along, there was darkness in all of Egypt, except the Hebrews, the Israelites, had illumination in their home. Well, where did they live? Near the Great Pyramid of Giza. They lived in the Giza Plateau. They had lights. Think about that. So we only get tidbits here and there. And then you have to look at the reality of what we're facing today and look at the history and look at real history, not necessarily what they want you to know. You have to do the digging. And trust me, I've been digging for over 60 years, learning this, comprehending it, putting it all together. See what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And what makes sense is that, yeah, we are, Earth is a captured operation by an alien life form. You have a better explanation? How do we have aliens today? Where do we get this alien technology from? Well, all sorts of technologies were given by the Watchers. Do you think the Nephilim or the spirits of the Nephilim or those stars which fell from heaven, those who joined the Satanic Rebellion, wouldn't continue to give that knowledge to humans? What would they want in exchange for it? You know, it depends. What are you asking for and what are you willing to give? If you give me an act of worship, I will give you all the kingdoms of the world. What kind of deal do you want to cut? You see, I will make you rich. You just have to do what I tell you to do. And once we have that agreement, but it's going to cost you something, maybe a loved one, maybe somebody else's loved one. Maybe the more souls that we get, the more you will give, we will give you. And so we enter a time of human trafficking. For what purpose? To carry on satanic rites by the elite who claim they have a right to rule over us? Yeah. Maybe the Anunnaki never left. And maybe it's being propagated as a way of mentally controlling people. Ooh, a PSYOP program. Imagine that. Man, who would have thought of that? Maybe the same people who thought of a flat Earth? Maybe the same people who turned around and said, here, take this. It'll help you. It'll fight against the flu. Get your jab today. Yeah, we know how that worked out for well over 100 million people around the planet. Some of them gravely and permanently injured, and some of them no longer with us. How far do you have to go before you know somebody who died after they took the jab? I know people who died after they took the jab within 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks. Oh, I'm going to travel. I got to get inoculated. Yep. You don't have to travel. We can't trust them to tell us the truth about anything. We have to have a guidepost, and that's where the scriptures come in, comprehending the prophecies. That's where we're able to take a direction, take a path, and then exercise our own free will and exercise our spiritual souls and consciousness in order to make a connection to the power of the almighty multiverse in order to keep us on top of the situation that's going on this planet. That's where faith comes in. Faith. When you are sure something is going to happen based on your hopes and expectations, you're sure that that's going to happen. Have faith. It'll happen. It's funny. I say I don't need faith anymore. I've lived through the reality. I got to see the hand of God save my life on more than one occasion, but on one occasion it was clear. It was clear. So I always had faith, but don't put your God to the test. You need him, he's there. But don't overstep your boundary. And it's having that comprehension that we do know what is out there. We know we have a way to connect to the most greatest power in existence to fight off any kind of alien invasion or demonic entities or satanic people that we may be facing. And yeah, more and more we're finding people that have turned to the dark side, that have become wicked, that have perhaps joined covens, that are part of a system that is willing to take everything that you have for their own gain and glory. I think we call them politicians. Think about it. And where does politics start? Right at the local level. Welcome to the school board. We want to pass this bill. Yep. Put this bond into effect. We all got to take a vote on it. I mean, it's for our children. Is that why the school systems are just disasters? I've heard nightmare stories coming out of the school systems on what these poor kids don't know. And basically, it's been 12 years of babysitting and no education in a lot of areas. Think about that. We've put out a generation of children that don't have any hope for the future. They don't know which way to go. Yeah, wonderful. How did that happen? I don't know. Maybe we'll be able to fix that. But we've got other situations that we're facing. We're facing these Anunnaki. We're facing off-planet entities. Comet Ison was a perfect, and still may be, an excellent opportunity to turn around for the government to say, oh, and by the way, we were visited by off-planet entities. Yeah, I know that. You've actually been visited by off-planet entities for close to 150 years now. It started by the Vril Society, who actually started. And this is back in the late 1800s, during the days of Madame Blavatsky and her ilk, and there was a lot of research being done into the spiritual world at that time. The Vril Society was brought into it came into being, and they are the first ones that actually started carrying out these religious rites, which included child sacrifice. The Vril Society in the late 1800s, early 1900s joined with the Thule Society. The Thule Society, and this was all about contacting aliens, contacting extraterrestrials. Uh, th- they actually were adopted into the SS in Germany, I guess, under Himmler. I'm not an expert in the SS, but or the Nazis, just enough to be, I know just enough to be dangerous. Um, but they were incorporated into the SS. And think about Hitler. He was looking for artifacts all over the place, especially in India, in the Himalayas, wherever they could find artifacts that would give the Third Reich an edge. Uh, Gee, have they stopped doing that? I don't think so. I think that elements of that same power group which exists today are still looking for artifacts from ancient aliens, or as we would call them, ancient aliens, because they did have weapons and technology that could melt rock, vitrify rock. Even the archaeologists have gone back into the area of Israel where Elijah and the Baal worshippers had a contest over would Yahuwah consume this sacrifice, or would the god Baal consume the sacrifice with fire? And the Baal worshippers lost. But what they found is that they believe they found this actual area because all the rock is vitrified, as if it was burned up by atomic fire. Literally melted the rock in that area. They find the same thing in several places in India, where the rock has been vitrified. You see places where stairways look like they got melted. Rocks get melted together. Um, but yet, academia won't talk about any of that. So, what was the purpose? The purpose was to get advanced technology, the wonder weapons. I heard an interesting story from allegedly a person who knew firsthand, Jack Parsons, who was overseeing the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, would go out into the desert and perform Babylonian rituals, trying to get advanced knowledge to get rocketry to build the science better, to get advanced technology in order to build a better, more elaborate type of rocket in order to advance their purposes. And it's alleged that he was successful, that he actually made contact using the Babylonian chants or the Babylonian spell to summon entities which gave him the answers that he was looking for advanced technology. That's one of the things that were actually taught by the Watchers. That they taught the people, basically, they already covered metallurgy, but they taught them medicine, astrology, astronomy, the casting of spells, and how to break the spells. That there was knowledge that was given to humans at the time, which we were never supposed to have. That technology was not supposed to be given to the children of God, and yet it was given to us. And then it started complicating our lives because the metalworking became weapons of war. And that's never stopped. Whatever metal was given to them, but they had advanced technology in order to create iron weapons long before the Iron Age. You look at some of look at some of the monuments that were built, and the pyramids is just the tip of the iceberg, if you want to call it that. Some of the megalithic stones that were put into place, there's just no way. They don't have the technology to move them today. But perhaps with sound technology, or were they built by the sons of the true God, the Watchers, who would have had superhuman strength? Were they built by the Nephilim? Because they certainly weren't hand chiseled with copper tools and put into place. Advanced technology put these huge megaliths in place to build these temples and these different buildings that we see constructed around the world. And yet, here we are living at the pinnacle of all of this. And the old technologies are now being updated. We have marvelous ways of communicating. Some of them are weapon systems, like Starlink, which uses a microwave shot down a laser beam in order to communicate with your little antenna on the roof. But it's great technology, kind of like 5G, which they can turn around and get the towers and the oscillation, tune up the power on it, and fry you where you stand. Yeah, microwave technology. Boil an egg in 1 minute. So they say. Just don't put the egg in there without putting a hole in it and putting it in water. Anyway, so there's all sorts of technologies that we have today and that are abused today. And then we wonder why we get sick and why we die early. And yet, it seems we hear a lot more about people dying at an earlier age, actors, actresses. Sad. Our environment is being turned against us by off-planet entities who are being worshipped by people willing to sacrifice children to them. That's the world in which we live. A sad state of affairs. But we're not going to end it there, because this is the most radical that the planet's ever gotten. And now we're going to see a reversal on this. Hopefully, we'll see somewhat of a reversal coming over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, because we've got it's time to start bringing down the satanic system of evil. It's time to see these entities put away. Babylon the Great must fall. Those from the synagogue of Satan must do obeisance at our feet. So Revelation states. And so we're just about out of time here. I do want to thank you for indulging me tonight. I hope I brought a little education, a little entertainment, and a little hope for the future. We do have a fantastic future coming up, and it's not that far off. We've got to get past this point. And maybe we'll talk more about this next week. Getting past the point and what we can actually expect to see coming in the next several years. I'm not going to make any predictions other than what's already written within the prophecies. I'm not going to make any personal predictions, because I've listened to the things that I've been told to by people who are supposed to know, the Q boards and the government, and they got the finger on the pulse of whoever, and they can't get it right. Oh, it's going to happen. Oh, it's going to happen. Oh, it's going to happen. Okay, well, keep on crying wolf, and we'll all be overtaken when it actually happens, won't we? So stay alert, stay frosty. I'm going to say love and blessings to all. Be sure to listen to the other shows. You got the Positive Podcast coming up with Maggie Hart tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Where Scully's doing his Red Pill reality show on Saturday, 9 to 12. And we ask that, hey, share this information with others. Like the show, join the network. We want our numbers to grow. Most of all, we want to bring great information to all of our listeners. And so with that, we're just about finished for tonight. And again, I wish everyone a most productive and enjoyable year ahead. Stay frosty, keep your head on a swivel, and love and blessings to all. Same place, same time next week. Good night, folks.